Nofap soldiers, good day to you. If you keep relapsing, there's three things you should look into. The first thing you should look into is the amount of stress you are under at this time. The reason why is because, remember, we need to look at this Nofap, this dopamine addiction. We need to look at this fapping thing as a drug. And when people are under periods of stress, they're more likely to relapse, jump back on the bus. They're more likely to give in to their addiction. So before you're too hard on yourself, look at the amount of stress that's in your life. Try to find these points of stress and mitigate them. Either mitigate them by removing them or start to do your meditation. That's why I say meditate so much, and that's why it helps you so much with Nofap, because it starts to cleanse your nervous system of that daily stress that you're under. But there's other things you can do as well. But that is the number one. So start to look at the amount of stress you have in your life and do things to mitigate it, decrease it, add more stress-reducing activities to your life. Because remember, again, under periods of stress, you're more likely to give in to your addiction. The second reason you should look into is whether or not you have any limiting beliefs back in that nervous system again. Do you have any subconscious beliefs that literally limit your amount of growth because it's a false belief about yourself, such as you're not worthy or I'm not good enough? These beliefs get stored in our subconscious. They start to formulate different thoughts that we're not even aware that we're having, and then they dictate our actions. Remember, thoughts dictate actions, actions dictate results. A belief is something that you have inside of you that is a long held to your subconscious mind at least, truth that you have inside of you. So if you're in your subconscious mind 90% of the time, and you have a thought in there that you're not aware of that says you're not good enough or you're not worthy, could it be that by that thought being there, you're self-sabotaging on Nofap? Every time you get a little bit of success, somehow you relapse. Maybe it's not just the addiction. Maybe it's just not the triggers such as a breast or an ass or you lusting. That's part of it. But there could be something deeper than that, that limiting belief that makes you relapse because you have a belief that you're not good enough, that you're not successful. And so as a result, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So while you're on the path of Nofap, cleanse yourself of limiting beliefs. Again, you can do meditation. You can do breathing exercises before your meditation. You can start to listen to subliminal tapes. But remember, subliminal tapes or CDs, subliminal, you can find them on YouTube, whatever it is. They just traditionally were called subliminal tapes when they first came out. But subliminal affirmations, they're calling them now. Try to listen to them that you don't hear with your conscious mind. Have them a little bit lower. And then when you have them a little bit lower, they start to be able to bypass the conscious mind because you may not believe it. And it seeps into the subconscious mind where that limiting belief is. So remember, that adds new stuff, but you also want something to bring the current stuff out. And if you do those two modalities together, put new thoughts in your subconscious mind while you take the old thoughts out through through meditation, through other stress relieving activities, you'll be able to get some excellent benefits. The third thing you should look into if you are a habitual relapser is, and I know this is going to be unpopular, trauma. Do you have any trauma stored in your subconscious mind? And the reason I say that is because a lot of people don't consider trauma. It's actual trauma, but they don't consider it that because they may be comparing it to something else. They think trauma is this huge, big thing. Just think of trauma like this: a very deep stress wound. You can have a traumatic event that just happens over time because of high stress, right? So consider trauma a very deep stress wound. You can do childhood healing to rid that. How does trauma make you relapse? Because remember, you may be relapsing because you were highly addicted to this. But generally, use the same methodology that they use when understanding drug abuse. What happens? They found that most people who are heavily addicted to a particular drug have some sort of traumatic event that you're dealing with. They have some type of trauma. It could be from 30, 40, 27, whatever it is, years ago. but it was traumatic to them. Therefore, they're more likely to find themselves addicted because they don't have the proper coping mechanisms to cope with the stress and trauma, talking about trauma, that they're holding inside. And remember, stress can be considered a form of trauma, and trauma can be considered a form of stress. In other words, it's been said that, again, trauma is nothing more than a very deep stress wound, that they're actually on the same plane, they're just at different levels of strength, so to speak. So look into any traumatic events. What can you do about it? Plenty of stuff. Heal, how do you heal? What you can do is you can start using, again, those subliminal affirmations that I was telling you about. They're also available on YouTube. You can also use self-hypnosis, childhood self-hypnosis. Start to evaluate your childhood, and not from a standpoint where you just want to complain about it, but you do have to look at it and say, okay, perhaps things could have been differently. Perhaps that young child of mine took this particular event as a child. When I say young child of mine, I mean your inner child, that inner child that's still inside of you. If you start to do inner child healing, you actually might help yourself not relapse so much, because that inner child may be lacking love, and it's seeking this addiction, these pixels on a screen, this dopamine increase to help it get the love that it didn't receive. And you can give that child that love now.